Well, g'day. I've been asked a lot lately about what real estate's going to do at the end of 22 and into 2023. So let's take a look at the economic outlook and where we're going on drive time here today. So let's understand inflation. Technically, inflation is across the world basically the highest it's been in a long time. And what's the cause of that? Multiple things, obviously. There's never one thing that causes inflation. There's a multiple of items. Obviously, the record level of government printing money and spending money and injecting money into society. If we go back to 2008, 2010, just in the U.S., the Obama administration put $800 billion into society to correct the negative situation and bail out companies and so on. This time around, between 4 and 6 trillion was allocated just in the US alone. If we go worldwide, there's another several trillion that was allocated by governments, the UK, Australia, etc. So we start to think about what that did, and add to that the constraints on delivery of product and service, with China literally still on lockdown. We're sitting here where we still have parts unavailable. It's still tough to get certain things. The production capabilities are limited by the ability to get supply of items around the world. I mean, simple things like balloons and helium, they're on shortages. And so you start saying to yourself, well, okay, that's the cause of inflation. I think there's also a level of political gameplay creating inflation. Things like gas prices. Some states, being Republican states in the U.S., have a much lower level of gas prices. Certain countries around the world, much lower level of gas prices. Here in Nevada, where it's $6 and something for a gallon of gas, which, it's $3 and something in Florida. So, that's a level of political gameplay. Now, that being said, understanding what is creating inflation puts us into, technically, recession, 2 periods of negative growth. The question is, will it become a depression? Well, let's take a look at real estate and start to think about what's going on in that marketplace and what that leads us to for the next 12 months, 18 months. Very simply put, we've got jobs. Jobs are starting to disappear, but it's still hard to find employees. So, there's not a level of unemployment that we need to concern ourselves with. Still, companies are in growth mode. Still, companies are in record profits. We're not seeing that. Even though the stock market is challenged at this point, we're still seeing that. The US dollar is at an all-time high on its ability against the euro, against the pound, against most currencies. The US dollar is still such a massive level of confidence, it's not funny. So we're seeing a great deal of confidence in the market despite the inflation and despite the recessionary activities. So, that being said, what's happening in the real estate market? Well, of course there's a slowdown. Why? Well, when you get inflationary tactics, governments around the world and reserve banks around the world tend to try and slow down inflation by increasing interest rates. So those tighter interest rates. Now, by the way, if you want to study this in depth, get on my 30x Wealth program. I spend one whole session of that program going through the actual fundamentals of the economic cycles and what are the triggers and what are the signs of the different economic cycles when it comes to fall, winter, spring, and summer, the boom and bust of the economies type thing, which is a 7 to 10 year cycle, which has been sped up this time around. Why? 2008, we went into that negative cycle and we went into a long winter, but that led to a long summer. 2012 through 2020 was an economic summer, so you had an 8-year economic summer followed by a 2-year economic downturn winter, and then spring kicked back in. And so it's amazing to see some companies still in absolute peak and boom, and yet from the other way around. So what determines real estate growth? Well, if we go down to Texas where jobs are being created, companies are moving to Texas, then of course there's more people moving there because there's more jobs moving there. When things like Tesla move to Texas, when companies that are very large companies move their head office there, of course that's going to increase. California, where taxes have not been reduced, where cost of living has gone up dramatically, you've got people all across California answering the question of, well, will we stay in California? And we're seeing people in droves still to this day considering moving out of California. But with a slowdown in the real estate market, it's meant a slowdown in the people leaving California. But that being said, the international movement into places like Miami or Florida, just within the state of the U.S. or within the country of the U.S., people moving is creating a demand that's there. That being said, the supply factor is high. Here in my home city of Las Vegas, Nevada, the supply of real estate is at an all-time high. There is a level of construction that's been phenomenal and thus giving people the ability to buy a home. Now, that increase in the way that we have, the increase in interest rates has led to a slowdown because borrowing is harder, valuations are not getting where they are, or appraisals are not getting where they want to be. Even though sales prices are up, we're still not seeing appraisals up to the level of the sale prices. So, thanks for typing in where you're at. Those who are new to this drive time, we type in where we're at and we type in our biggest lesson so that we actually know what we're learning and where we're going on the drive. All right, so take all of that into account. What do I see happening with real estate come the end of this year into next year? The slowdown in sales is real. That is not going to be something that we're going to fight. The slowdown in sales is real. With a slowdown in sales comes a slowdown in price movements. Do I see prices dropping? Not by a whole lot. I would see a steadiness in price points for somewhere between, I'm guessing at minimum 2 years. And really, if I'm serious about it, elections are going to be a big part of this cycle. We just saw in the UK a change in government led to a change in the valuation of the pound. Change in monetary policy led to a change in the valuation of the pound. When it went all the way down there, I thought the US dollar was going to be worth more than the pound there for a minute. And maybe it will get to that because of the demand for US dollar, the people moving to the US, the increase in desire of companies to move to the US is still very high. So I'm going to watch the November elections here in the US. If there is a Republican move towards winning, then I believe that we will start to increase the economic output of the country. If there is a Democratic lead in that, I would see a negative situation in economic impact. And that's not a political thing, that's just an economic viewpoint of the way the world works on confidence. In 2023, I see a steadiness in real estate prices. If there is a decrease, it will only be by a few percent. Some people saying, I've lost money on my real estate. No, you didn't. It was overinflated. I've taught you this for many years. The moment your brother-in-law becomes a real estate developer, it's overpriced. The moment you start seeing 100% mortgages, it's overpriced. So it was overpriced for a period of time. It was over demand for a period of time. Here in the States, the move of people out of New York, out of California meant that they were paying California prices and New York prices for real estate in other states. And that overpriced, overheated the market. It pushed the market to about, in my opinion, between 5 and 10% above what the market should have been priced at. And we're seeing that come back to a reasonable price point right now. So that reasonable price point is where we're at. I see a steadiness of that through 23, 24, and maybe into 25. When we see the next federal U.S. election, we're going to see another indicator of what's going to move that market. But business profits are high. Businesses are allowing virtual workforces for companies like Google and Twitter and massive companies that pay high salaries is going to allow high price points being paid for real estate. and we still haven't seen the ripple effect of real estate prices from Utah and Nevada and Colorado moving into the center of the country. So that ripple effect is still happening, where that higher price points have got to measure across the country. So what do I see happening? I don't see a massive negative happening. I see maybe a slight correction of the overheating of the markets or the overpricing of the markets, and then we move into a fairly steady price point. But during that steadiness, what we're going to see is a large increase in rental income over the next 5 years. Remember, when values go up massively, we've got to equal out with rental income going up, especially with interest rates going up. Interest rates are going to increase the cost to the investor. If the investor has an increase in costs, the investor is going to increase the rent that is going to need to be paid. So cost of building is up, which is going to keep a cost of new homes going up. We can't reduce the price of new homes just because of demand. We are going to have in some markets an oversupply of new real estate. That's okay. That will come back to self-correcting. A lot of the big companies have already slowed down their development levels. They're not building as much as they were building before. So real estate, when's the best time to invest? Today, always today. Why? Because 20 years from now, if you take out a 20-year mortgage, it will be paid off. You will own it 100% in full, and you'll be collecting rent, which will have gone up over those 20 years. And if we're smart and we buy in decent areas, our value will have increased double over those 20 years. Anyway, enjoy the real estate investing. Enjoy this recap of the market. Good to see that we've got people across the world watching and listening. Be well. Share this drive. Type in your biggest lesson. Type in the city you're in. I want to know what's going on in your life. If you've got any questions, also type that in. I'll get back to answer these as much as I can. 30x Wealth is where you learn to invest. Be well. Keep reading. Keep studying. Keep growing. If you grow, your goals become a reality. Bye for now.